Hey everyone, it's Jason here from Oracle. I am really honoured here to be with Scott Millar from BOP Industries. Hey Scott, how are you?
Hey Jason, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
I think there's a few things we're going to talk about right at the end, but before we get into that kind of detail, tell us about yourself, tell about where you started and more the background story around BOP Industries and how we sort of got together.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my name's Scott Millar. I'm 20 years old and I'm the CEO and founder of a Brisbane-based education company called BOP Industries. Now, BOP is a company that I started back as a 14-year-old selling hearings at local markets as part of a grade 9 business program, and grew really quickly from selling hearings at local markets to selling a few thousand units a month by the time I was in grade 10, and then getting into the hologram space through YouTube tutorial. I'm graduating year 12. I found myself running one of Australia's leading holographic entertainment companies and running events and installations all around the world with CEOs and politicians and prime ministers. And graduating year 12, I had a lot of teachers reaching out saying, hey, Scott, could you help teach our students how to do what you did? There's a big push for entrepreneurship and innovation and STEM in the curriculum. And the teachers were saying, we're just not equipped to be able to teach that to our students. So we started running some workshops back in 2018 in regional Queensland, teaching kids how they can start their own businesses, work with technology, and really make a difference in their local communities. And in the past 3 years, we've worked with 50,000 students in 36 locations around the world. For me as a 20-year-old, I head up the company. On my team, I have everything from 14-year-olds up to 50-year-olds. And it's been really exciting. We now get to work with schools doing incursions and school holiday and after school programs, all the way through to curriculum redesign and redevelopment. So it's been phenomenal seeing what we've been able to do, but really exciting seeing the changes that we've seen in the education space over the past few years and what we're about to see, I think, over the next decade.
Yeah, and I think the last time we sort of caught up, or at least bumped into each other, was at the Way Beyond Today at Kelvin Grove, where you actually head up that couple of those sessions. I was actually on an industry panel with a few other people in ICT. But yeah, it's really interesting when you start looking at, as a parent, it's really interesting to see when the curriculum does bring in people like yourself and others to actually help that whole curriculum. So what does that engagement look like for you within that school sector and with teachers? Because teachers are very important.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I always say I have the pleasure of splitting my time about 4 ways. So I spend a quarter of my time working with industry. So getting to work with phenomenal industry partners from small businesses all the way up to big multinationals around the world, taking a lot of their content and turning it into a way that it's really real, relevant, and relatable for young people. I get to spend another quarter of my time hanging out in the startup space, getting to meet really cool entrepreneurs and startups really pushing the boundaries. Another quarter of my time at different events, speaking, keynoting, but also listening and hearing some really interesting topics. But then also too, like you said, working in schools, working with teachers, working with students, and working with school leaders to really make sure that we are adequately preparing our students for the future of work. And a lot of that, it goes down to a lot of the research. Like the research is showing us that students graduating school today are going to change careers every 7 years. That means every 7 years, our young people are going to be going from being a doctor to a lawyer, to a teacher, to a pilot, to an accountant. And by the time they retire, they're going to have 7 to 8 totally different career pathways under their belts. So it's looking at how can our teachers in the classroom today be preparing our students for this future world of work and the future world of work as well, where a lot of the career pathways that we're expecting don't even exist yet. So it's a lot around those soft skills, those 21st century skills, making sure that our students aren't necessarily subject matter experts, but just love to learn, because that's what they're going to need to be able to do when they get older, is to be able to learn and reskill and retrain and retool for these different career pathways. So everything from, going into schools and running these workshops, teaching students about everything from sustainable cities to the future of work, entrepreneurship, aviation, and everything in between, to actually working with teachers, looking at their lesson plans and looking at their curriculum and looking at how can we update it? How can we always talk about the 3 R's of education. They've typically been reading, writing, and arithmetic makes a really strong foundation for education. But we work with our teachers to make sure that their education is real, relevant, and relatable for young people. And again, making sure it connects with industry, because at the end of the day, we're trying to educate our students so they have these employability skills to thrive now, but also in the future of work. So making sure that what they're teaching in the classroom mirrors what's actually happening in the industry.
And that's interesting how we've sort of come together, even in this kind of format of us actually having this chat. Is how does what you're doing there get impacted by the digital technology, especially where I'm working from Oracle, there's a whole bunch of tool sets and stuff that we do there. How does that how does that tie in to what you're doing at the schools and with industry?
Yeah, so I think digital's been such an exciting space to be in. And I think we've really seen that over the past 12 months. Like we've seen schools being able to connect with anyone, anywhere in the world to come and chat to their students and using all these digital tools to enhance the learning experience for kids. And I think that's the real place that digital has in education. But also too, I think from an educator's point of view, it's about making sure students aren't just digitally literate, but they're digitally confident as well. We always hear a lot about digital literacy. It's the ability to follow a series of steps to get to a desired outcome. But I think what we really are starting to see a shift of is instead of ensuring our students are digitally literate, they can follow a set of instructions, they need to be digitally confident. They can follow those instructions, get to a desired outcome, but be so comfortable with those skills and the digital platforms that they can then really start to innovate. They can break things, they can try new things, but they're going to learn along the way. And that really is digital confidence. And that's when we see the most amazing innovations come out. And a lot of that comes from repurposing different tools in different ways, being able to take a technology that has one intended use and find a totally different application for it. And that's where I think industry getting some really exciting ideas from. And that's what I'm really excited about with the connection with yourself, Jason, is looking at how we can take some of these different Oracle technologies and find new uses for them in different industries and in different places around our communities to be able to help make our lives easier, more efficient, and more enjoyable.
And that's the interesting thing that I like about the workshop that we're building and we're presenting out as part of the holiday workshop is taking what we've had as a event-based card, which is a IoT device and Arduino unit that we use as part of our global conferences, especially in our coding, our developer conferences. And how can students and how can different people can repurpose that in a very different way. So I love the opportunity that's been brought forward in terms of just collaborating on what we can do.
And I think that's the really exciting thing is it's when industry makes the work they're doing quite open source, like actually giving power to the people and saying, if you had this technology, if you could do anything with it and break it and try new things with it, what would you do? And I think especially when you give it to young people, like these young people that have grown up in such a digital world, they think about technology in such a different way. And that's what I'm most excited about with this hackathon is giving it to these kids that don't know a world without Wi-Fi, that don't know a world without touchscreen devices and a world without social media, and seeing how they're going to take this technology and apply it in so many different ways. Like I even know for myself, I was born in the year 2000, so I'm a little bit older than some of the kids we're going to have working with us, being a high school aged workshop for grade 9 to 12 students. But I know for me, like being born in the year 2000, Wi-Fi hit the mainstream before I started primary school. The first iPhone came out when I was in year 2, and Facebook hit 1 billion monthly active users before I was old enough to get Facebook. And because of that, I'm constantly connected to devices, whether it's a laptop, a phone, or any sort of other device. I see devices as an extension of who I am. And I think that's what's going to be really exciting when we start to work with these young people is they're seeing their outlook on technology and seeing as well their creativity and problem solving skills in action when they have something like the code card and they're looking at how could we use this code card in different ways and how can we use it to solve some of the different challenges that different industries are facing. I think that's what we've seen the most with our collaborations with corporate partners is that young people think so differently to adults. And because of that, we get some really exciting ideas coming out.
And really giving that safe space for them to actually be supported, and also appreciate the ideas that they bring to the table. I think that's as important because I definitely know that within our workspace that the demographics are very different than, and then the ideas are also then very different. So inclusion, diversity is definitely part of what I'm wanting to bring to the table as part of this.
Absolutely. And I think what kids really enjoy out of it as well is the ability to work on a real challenge from a real organization. I think one of the things kids can get a bit tired of is just doing things for the sake of doing things. Like they go through these programs in schools and they're just doing it for the sake of their assessment item, and their teacher spends 10 minutes marking it and then puts it in a filing cabinet. But I think what really excites kids about this program in particular is the fact that they're working with a real piece of technology from a real company that really wants to hear what they have to say. And I think that's such a phenomenal opportunity for young people these days is they don't necessarily need that university degree or decades of experience in the industry to be able to have their input on a real piece of tech with a real organization. Companies like Oracle that are going to young people and saying, hey, we really want to know what you think and how you would use this technology. It's such an awesome opportunity that so many kids would not normally get the opportunity to have.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting what happens on the 14th of January in terms of, I'm actually quite excited as far as what we're doing here. So Scott, appreciate the time as part of having this quick chat, and we'll catch you at the workshop soon.
Absolutely. So looking forward to seeing you there, and hopefully as well some of the Oracle community. I can't wait to get them involved in this project, and I think as well getting them to share their experience, their expertise, and their stories with some of the young people, and in return seeing the ideas these young people come up with. It's going to be a really exciting time.
Thanks, Scott. Cheers.
Listen.